Hi, everyone. This is Sabrina Rumbach, your host for the Powerful and Passionate Healthcare Professionals podcast. Thank you so much for joining us another day, another week. And think about nowadays, how well are we just going, thriving, and maintaining everything, especially as we're coming off this downfall of summer, right? The dog day of summer where we feel like, ooh, everything seems to be a little harder, a little slower. But did I actually recharge and refill myself? And that's why we have Dr. Leslie here with us. She has spent her whole life in healthcare. She has more than 25 years experience as a holistic chiropractor that has also been practicing in Central Coast in California. And she also spent 10 years before that as a medical lab scientist. Over the past couple of years, Dr. Leslie really have devoted herself combining the scientific knowledge of her holistic and nutritional expertise in health coaching and consulting. And she particularly loved to work with women who wanted to lose weight, address hormone issues, and resolve and reverse chronic health issues. Now, we know healthcare professionals are always on the go. You're serving your patients constantly. But have you stopped for a second to serve yourself and really eat your way, think your way out of whatever stress and things that didn't serve you? So thank you so much, Dr. Leslie, for being here.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
We would love to hear more about your personal journey. How did you choose, hey, chiropractic is the great way, and then start morphing into the field that you're in, particularly helping women?
Well, as you mentioned, I did start out as a medical lab scientist. And actually, while I was still a student, one of the very last things I had to do in my internship was that I had to assist at the bedside for a bone marrow biopsy. And it was just a horrendous procedure, Sabrina. I mean, this little old lady that was laying in the bed looked to my 22-year-old eyes to be 110. And it was just, it was a horrible procedure. And just blood-curdling screams that sucked all the air out of the room because they don't do anesthesia for that kind of procedure, and just horrible. Anyway, they finally get the sample. They hand it to me. I make the microscope slides, and I bring those and the sample back to the lab. And I tell the senior tech about what happened. And she looks at me with these sad eyes, and she says, "But Leslie, they don't even treat leukemia in patients that old." And I was just devastated to think that I had contributed to that whole thing for no good reason. And then kind of simultaneously to realize that in that career, in that path that I had chosen, I had no hope for ever being able to affect that paradigm. And that's when I realized that I needed to be on the other side of the fence, so to speak, keeping people from ever having to get into that hospital bed. And so that's why I eventually went back to school and became a chiropractor and did that for, 25 plus years. And then it was really my own health experiences within that had me make the shift into the aspect of coaching and consulting that I work mostly in, because I had a hellacious time during menopause. And I took what I thought was going to be a natural, easy way and went on bioidentical hormones. And 2 months later, I weighed 20 pounds more. The symptoms had stopped, but I had a new problem. So then I had to go down the tunnel and do my own research and figure it out, how to get the weight off, how to balance my hormones, how to start thinking clearly again, and get on even kill with my moods, like before I killed my husband or kids. So
Right?
yeah.
You change one problem to the next.
Yeah.
What do I do? Like, do I feel better supposedly, but I gain weight? And then how do I even lose that weight? Do I need to do something else that costs me another thing? Right.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
just like you're saying, it also involves in our relationship because our mood changes.
Hmm.
The way we talk to
Exactly.
people completely is not the same way as we're optimized.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just, I pulled back and started doing the research and found that there was a natural way to do it. And, and then I created a system from there that I use to help my clients. And, that system basically incorporates diet and exercise, but it also incorporates the gut microbiome and your environment and just all the things. It's a total picture. And it works.
Yeah. And do you believe it's actually not just people, especially women in the menopause, that having a great diet, exercise, and gut health really applies to the younger population? Even for me, I know I have IBS, and it just come and goes, and you never know. You have
Hmm.
to prevent yourself from getting there, right? Just
Yeah.
like you're
Yeah.
saying, we can't always just like, oh my God, when things happen, now deal with it. But then it's more like you're just on this little boat and you're gonna hit a rock. Well, you're gonna sink. Instead of actually have words and to direct yourself going to the stream, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So I even remember to take my fiber, prebiotic, probiotic, digestive enzyme. But I'm sure you're gonna dive all the good stuff into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of doing as much of it as possible with good old-fashioned whole food. So, I so I put the ground flax seeds and the ground chia seeds in in my oatmeal or in my smoothie or that kind of thing rather than getting the thing of Metamucil. And
I
that's what
do
I
on my
recommend to
PSP
people.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's exactly what I recommend to people is that whole food is really the way to go with it because it's the whole food that has all those micronutrients that our bodies were designed to eat.
Yeah, perfect. That's a great
Yeah.
simple example of
Yeah.
to instead of buying more meds and then
Yeah.
any supplement that we get, right, or prescription medication, you always come with some side effect. But
Hmm.
you said like you gain the weight. So
Yeah.
what do you think are some prevalent misconceptions people have about using food and nutrients to turn their life around?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is kind of the what should they eat and what shouldn't they eat. And and I've had my own evolution in all this too, because, for instance, I'm predominantly plant-based, but I don't say that people have to be vegan because you can be a junk food junkie and still be vegan. It's more the quality of the food, it's more whole food that makes the difference. And the biggest thing that I found as far as the hormone balancing, and I think this affects far more than just women and their hormones, it affects all people and their hormones, is getting rid of dairy. And that's the one recommendation that I really do make to people that the one thing that I say they really need to get rid of. Other than that, it's like, everything else, you can have a little bit of meat and it's not going to kill you if you just do it once in a while and, that kind of thing. But if you're taking in dairy, you're basically feeding yourself bovine growth fluid. And when you think about it, that's what dairy is. It's designed to turn a cute little 40-pound calf into a 1,000-pound cow in a year. What's that going to do to you, a grown human?
Right. So dairy, if you
Yeah.
think I do not like milk. We see the got milk commercials, right? I guess like people are not really drinking as much milk, but I like almond milk, like these alternatives. But I still love my cheese. So in a sense, I'm still getting dairy. So do you see people who are selective about, oh, maybe I have switched from regular whole milk to these alternative milk? Are they really beneficial for us? Or do you think if they keep still consuming cheese or relatively related product, there's still the deficit of this just the same thing as you were drinking milk?
Well, here's the thing, is that when you're eating cheese, you've basically taken that bovine growth fluid that I was mentioning that's loaded with hormones and loaded with growth nutrients in it, and you're concentrating it by pulling out all the water. So you're making it even that much more of a problem. And now understand that you are talking to a former ice cream and cheese addict here. Okay. So I did manage to get past it. And that's, that's kind of my words of wisdom, if you will, is that, it was uncomfortable for a few weeks. But I'm so glad that I got to the point to where now it's like, I just have no desire for it anymore. And I've kind of come full circle with it and just won't even really consume it. And yes, there are some cheese alternatives on the market, and I do use some of the ones that the cream cheese type ones on occasion. I don't use them a lot, but I do use them a little bit on occasion, the ones that are made with nuts. And there are a couple that are coming onto the market now that are like the harder cheeses that are made with nuts, and they've fermented them so that they're a little bit more like hard cheese. And so as a transition food, that's not a bad choice.
So yes, just like when I talk to people about like willpower is so short lasting, discipline is harder to build. Let's just not even worry about it. Let's transition ourselves out, as you're saying. So then it no longer have to rely on those type of behaviors, thoughts to help us get to the next better life, right? So it's about breaking down this big whole idea of I have to cut dairy out of my life. Ooh, how do I do it? If I already love my ice cream, love my cheese, love like just having my milk and cereal. Well, what can we do to at least cut down 80%, then 50%, or swap it out to alternative, as you're mentioning?
Yeah.
Do you see when people switch to the alternatives and they're actually gaining benefit, or how long it will take them to get that benefit?
I think it happens pretty quickly, especially if you've got like a woman that's in perimenopause that's having horrible symptoms. If she gets rid of the dairy and brings in a little bit of soy, and I really make the emphasis on organic soy, so we know that it's not genetically modified. So she gets rid of the dairy, brings in some soy, and really works at cleaning up the rest of her diet. Typically they'll see results in a couple of weeks.
Oh, so, that's great. Just a couple of weeks. I mean, we have wasted time on doing so much more in a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
All the people, even you can only keep your resolution for 2 weeks, you can try this. And then it's about how do you make it happen. I always think about like, this is big goal. If I wanted to cut completely in 2 weeks, how do I do a systematic? How do I reward myself when I actually stopped? Right. So then we feel good about all these things in our life. And that's part of our mind. I know Dr. Leslie talks a lot about that too. So now that we're thinking about, okay, gut health, get rid of dairy, try to eat whole food, adding chia seeds, hemp seeds, grind them into your smoothies, into your drinks, part of your oatmeal. That's you already eating, so you don't feel like you have to do anything additional, and natural, amazing fiber. What other things would you suggest?
So those are some of the main things, and just, the whole idea of eating mostly fruits and veggies and whole complex carbos and beans and grains and things of that nature, just bringing more of those natural foods back into it. One of the things I tell people is that when you go into a store, look at it as though you're some native from some continent, someplace that has never seen processed American food. And what are the things that you're going to stick to? What are the things that you're going to recognize as real food? And those are the things that you want to gravitate to. So you're talking mostly your fruits and veggies, your beans, your whole unprocessed grains, maybe a little bit of meat, but not a great deal of meat, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I mean, also just doing a new shopping list, it can create a bonding experience with your significant other or your kids just to play, right? It's like discovering a new ability, new skill. Maybe you don't necessarily love to cook, but you can find simple ideas and recipes, at least just to get your mind going toward thinking on healthy living. And at the end of the day, really, everyone, we have to be honest with ourselves. How much does our health truly worth to us, right? If you don't feel good, you constantly running to the bathroom, do you think you can actually focus enough to deal with your patients that's like really needy, right? Constantly. And your team's like, oh, what do you want me to do next? Right?
Yeah. And not only that, there have been more and more studies that are coming out about the positive effects of fruits and veggies, not just on our gut health and on our weight loss, but also on our brain health. I was actually just one of the people that I follow in the world of nutrition, as far as what's out there in the common market, is Dr. Greger, who does Nutrition Facts. And he just did a video last week on fruits and veggies and how there are studies that show that they decrease anxiety, they help with mood, they do all those things that that we don't think of it in those terms. We just think of it, oh, well, fruit's good for me. Yeah, but you don't realize how many ways it's good for you. It helps your mood. It helps your brain power. It helps you concentrate. It does all that stuff for you that you don't even think about it.
Oh, for sure. And then think about like how many serotonin receptors in our gut, right? And that's why people are moodier when they have gut problems.
Yeah. And you're feeding that good guy gut bacteria that is producing that serotonin. So it's all full circle.
Right. Everything is so interconnected, right? You keep just thinking about doing one thing, but then not the other. They will start impacting each other. So as someone who's in the healthcare arena, what do you think is the big thing we have to pay attention to as practitioners, whether it's on our own health or when we are engaging with our patients on the topic of nutrition and having a better healthy diet or healthy gut for that matter?
Yeah, I think the biggest couple of things are getting away from the processed foods and all the added oils and all that stuff, and getting away from dairy and concentrating more on fruits, veggies, whole grains. And when I say whole grains, I mean unpulverized grains. I don't mean like whole wheat flour. I mean like quinoa, brown rice, barley, millet, things like that.
Perfect. And I think all of us can take into some consideration. You probably have heard about this information, and you probably heard about like, oh, let me maybe try to quit the dairy, but how, right? Like, can you keep yourself consistent enough just to try for 2 weeks? And then we're so happy to help. And if you love this episode, please follow our podcast and leave a comment for us, leave a review. We'd love to hear from you. As we proceed to the next phase of our show, I really appreciate Dr. Leslie for sharing all these amazing tips for us. And we also know that health is one of the major component, right? Physical health of our life, but it's harder to be experts in everything. And sometimes we don't really need to be Superman and Superwoman, right?
No,
And
no.
like it's tiring. So the more we understand where we sit, where we are, the easier to tap into the higher performance level, being happy and satisfied in our life. So I asked our speakers to take a life will assessment on themselves. So Dr. Leslie, when you took the assessment or when you saw your results, what are some thoughts that pop into your head?
Well, I think for me, I think the physical part is a given. That's I feel pretty confident about all that, and that was reflective in the wheel. And I think, you know, and I think that some of the mental emotional stuff, you know, maybe, you know, relationships and that kind of stuff, are more an area that I've been actively working on. And so I did see that in the assessment. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing,
Yeah.
right? Like we can go on live,
Yeah.
we sometimes get a little sidetracked, and then
Yeah.
we can bring ourselves right back on the path again.
Yeah. And I think it's good, you know, to me, you know, life is about growth. We're always growing and changing, and that's the way it should be.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
The more we reflect and the more growth we have, then we don't feel like that stagnant, not just,
Yeah.
oh, I'm comfortable or I'm doing great things, but can you tap into the next level where you're doing amazing at everything? So I
Yeah.
appreciate you. I'm sure a lot of people gonna wanted to talk more about dieting, the perfect method for themselves, and how can people reach out to you?
Well, my website is drlesliek.com, and you can also find me. I have a public Facebook group that's Vibrant Health Over 40. So that's an easy way to get a hold of me. And my Instagram handle is dr.lesliek. And I also have a program that I offer that if they text the word wellness to the number 41259, they will get 30 days of free inspirational texting messages and text messages that are inspirational, nutritional, and health related. And so they just have to text that wellness to that number and follow the prompts. If you don't follow the prompts, you're not going anywhere. People
Exactly.
yeah,
Tell us the number again. We text wellness
to 41259.
41259.
Yeah,
Everyone, grab your phone, put in your text message, get the amazing little daily prompts so you can live even more amazing life, right? And we're so appreciating everyone for joining us for this episode. Please let us know what is the one major takeaway that you love about this episode or the one thing you're going to commit to for your own health. And if you like to contact Dr. Leslie, she has given you every single possible ways. And if you would like to chat with me, feel free to grab a virtual coffee chat. I would love to see your lovely faces. Until next time, and have a great day, a great week, and great weekends if we don't see each other.